Step back in time to a world ruled by the Mongol Empire, where fear and violence were commonplace, and the punishments for even the slightest offenses were nothing short of brutal. Are you ready to uncover the most heinous acts of punishment inflicted upon the empire's subjects? Genghis Khan's rise to power was characterized by his military prowess and strategic thinking. Under his leadership, the Mongol Empire expanded rapidly, and he is considered one of the most successful conquerors in history. Despite his many achievements, Genghis Khan was also known for his brutal and merciless punishments, which were used to maintain order and control over his subjects. These punishments ranged from public executions and floggings to more creative and sinister methods, such as skinning alive, boiling alive, and the crushing of bones. These punishments were meant to serve as a deterrent to those who might consider challenging his rule, and were used to instill fear in the hearts of the empire's subjects. In this article, we will examine 6 of the most brutal punishments inflicted by Genghis Khan, offering a glimpse into the dark and violent world of his rule. Skinning alive. One of the most notorious punishments inflicted by Genghis Khan was skinning people alive. This punishment was reserved for those who committed particularly heinous crimes, such as treason or the killing of a fellow Mongol. The victim would be stripped of their clothes, and their skin would be slowly removed from their body, starting from their head and working downwards. The process was slow and excruciatingly painful, often lasting for several hours. The skin would then be displayed as a warning to others. Impalement. Another brutal punishment inflicted by Genghis Khan was impalement. This involved piercing the victim's body with a long, sharp object, such as a spear or a wooden stake. The object was typically inserted through the rectum and out the mouth, which caused the victim to slowly die of internal bleeding. This punishment was used as a public display of Genghis Khan's power and was intended to serve as a warning to others. Boiling alive. Boiling alive was another punishment inflicted by Genghis Khan. The victim would be placed in a large cauldron of boiling water or oil, where they would slowly die from the intense heat. This punishment was typically reserved for those who committed crimes against the state, such as espionage or treason. The boiling process was slow, and the victim would often be conscious for several hours before finally succumbing to their wounds. Hanging. Hanging was a frequently used punishment during the rule of Genghis Khan, and it was meant to serve as a warning to others who might consider committing similar crimes. The process was slow and painful, as the victim was suspended from a tree or gallows and left to suffocate. This was a deliberate choice, as the length of the punishment was meant to increase the deterrent effect. The victim would often be conscious for several hours before finally losing consciousness, making the punishment all the more grueling and traumatic. Genghis Khan was known for his brutal punishments, and hanging was just one of the many methods he used to maintain control over his subjects. It was a means of instilling fear in the hearts of the empire's subjects, and it was intended to serve as a warning to those who might consider challenging his rule. The legacy of Genghis Khan's brutal punishments continues to this day, serving as a reminder of the harsh and violent world of his rule. Flaying. Flaying was another punishment inflicted by Genghis Khan. This involved removing the skin from a person's body, typically starting from the face and working downwards. The process was slow and painful, and the skin was often displayed as a warning to others. This punishment was typically reserved for those who committed particularly heinous crimes, such as treason or the killing of a fellow Mongol. The wheel. The wheel was a punishment that involved tying the victim to a large wooden wheel and beating them with sticks or whips. This punishment was used as a deterrent to others who might consider committing similar crimes. The beating process was often slow, and the victim would often be conscious for several hours before finally losing consciousness. The wheel was considered one of the most brutal punishments inflicted by Genghis Khan, and was typically reserved for the most serious offenses. While Genghis Khan's legacy is complex and multifaceted, his brutal punishments are an undeniable part of it. He was a man of war who conquered vast territories and established the Mongol Empire, but he was also known for his cruelty and his willingness to use violence as a means of maintaining his rule. His punishments were intended to serve as a deterrent, and they were often slow and painful, designed to inflict maximum suffering on the victims. The punishment methods he used, such as skinning alive and boiling in oil, were brutal and inhumane, reflecting the harsh and savage nature of his rule. In conclusion, Genghis Khan's brutal punishment serve as a reminder of the lengths to which a leader will go to maintain their power and the human capacity for violence and cruelty. Today, his legacy continues to be studied and debated, but one thing is certain: his brutal punishments will forever be a part of his legacy and a dark chapter in human history. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the brutal punishments used during the Mongol Empire. We hope this video was both informative and eye-opening for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating historical content like this. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.